Thank you very much, Mr. Rao, for the nice words you said. And ladies and gentlemen, I will extend my warm welcome to you to attend this supply chain course. Now, first slide which I am going to show you is the agenda. What we will be covering in 19 sessions. This is the agenda basically. First point is what is a supply chain function? And then we will touch upon importance of supply chain and why it is important to have this function at all. Because initially we used to have integrated materials management function, procurement function. Why supply chain? Then, okay, once we are convinced that we should have supply chain function, then what are the 5 major key dimensions to have a superior supply chain? What are the 7 principles of supply chain? This slide 3 or 4, and basically 3 or 4 points will help you to arrive and deciding a particular supply chain so that you are deciding on a supply chain which is a strategic fit to the business objective. We'll come back to it later. Then how supply chain function got evolved and what are the future trends of supply chain. This is extremely important because you all must know how it got evolved and how it is going to take shape in due course of time, say next 10 years, next 5 years. And this course will have some major key takeaways. So you will come to know what are the important things, why you should be attending this course. On personal basis, what are your gains? On professional basis, what are your gains? And then who should be attending this course? Target audience. And then ultimately topics of 19 sessions that we will cover one by one. Now coming back to point number 1, what is supply chain function? As you know that it is a system of organizations, people and activities and information and resources which involve in moving a product or services from supplier to customer. Now what does it mean? It means that supply chain is nothing but a set of people, set of organizations, set of activities which integrate together to produce certain product or services which will help you to sell that services in the market. So it is basically nothing but enabler of value addition. It adds value. These kind of value additions are important because without adding value you will gain nothing. Now second thing is strategic management of activities which are involved in acquisition and conversion of materials. Now what is strategic management? I hope we are all clear what is strategic management. Strategic management is activities which are mainly once in a lifetime activities, say for next 5 years, maybe next 7 years. Suppose you are going to have you are going to have a business. Now you will decide what product you will be manufacturing, whether to have your warehouse, whether to outsource or you have your own warehouse, what kind of machinery you will be having. So these are all strategic decisions. These are not tactical and operational decisions. So supply chain is basically a strategic management of activities. First time you do it, and then later on you need to follow it. You need to evaluate, reevaluate and improve. And it's a supply chain is a support function and definitely a backbone to the entire organization. There is no doubt it's a support function and backbone. Now the most important thing here is once we decide a supply chain, we need to aim towards sustainability and being green. I'll come to what is being sustainable. Sustainable means you have to act responsibility so that resources on the planet will be supporting your next generations to come. Now simplest definition is to maintain, support, endure, and withstand the environment. And if something is sustainable or not sustainable, you need to ask this question whether I can do it forever. You are using plastic bags. Once you go to a retail shop, he is giving you something to carry bags of plastics. Now, if you ask whether it is sustainable in the long run, can you do it forever? The simple answer is no. In case it cannot be done forever, so it is not sustainable. So you need to find out some solution to it, how to replace it. So supply chain will talk about that. And it's not only sustainability, it is being green. Now, being green means what? Green supply chain management is nothing but integrating environmental thinking into all your actions. Now, you have to protect the environment because you are in industry. You are producing whether automobile or air conditioner or, as I mentioned, plastic bags or anything. Now, you have to think in terms of environment. Now, unless you think in those lines, in terms of environment, things will not be good for the environment and good for the industry as well. So it's a long-term thinking, and there are manifold benefits. Like, not only cost is one part. You will be gaining in terms of reducing pollution level, reducing so many diseases. So these I have tried to capture everything in this particular slide. What are the advantages of being green? You must have read recently there was a disaster in Delhi when from a lot of total mountain of garbage came down because everybody was storing it and throwing garbage and creating havoc. A lot of people, 2 or 3 persons died. So we need to think of a supply chain which is not only sustainable, but it has to be green also. It will have financial benefit, environmental benefit, and social benefit. Next is process integration and interaction management. As I said, it integrates all the processes and it's interactive management. Now, supply chain means there is a planning department, there is a warehousing, there is a procurement cell, there is a demand forecasting cell, there is vendor development. All these functions are interacting together very closely, and their processes are very well integrated so that your business objective is met properly. So supply chain function enables that. It's a strong enabler to all this. And the extremely vital thing is that effective supply chain starts from supplier and ends with customer. Traditional thought was that supply chain starts from suppliers and ends with customer. No, it is not the thing. If you take the real life example also, if I am running a food chain, say QSR, quick service restaurant, now my job will not be over if customer is eating something and he is happily walking out. No, that is not the end of the job. End of the job will be how I am going to dispose what he is leaving behind. A lot of waste, a lot of leftovers. So it will go to the customer. It will be my customer's customer. Some of you may be in procurement. You might have faced a situation where something is out of stock. So you interact with your supplier and ask him why this item is not available. Then he will tell you that his supplier has not supplied and he is running out of this item. Then what do? You will immediately try to figure out and contact him. So you are not contacting supplier, but you are contacting supplier's supplier. So effective and sensitive supply chain starts from supplier and ends with customer. If you keep these things in mind, then it will help you in designing an effective, sensitive, sustainable, green and profitable supply chain, which will be in line with your company's mission and objective. And there has to be a strategic fit in a nutshell. Now, what is the importance of supply chain? Having understood what is the importance of supply chain, I'll give you a classic example. There was a supply chain managers meet some time back, and one supply chain manager, he mentioned that cycle time from fishing a shrimp, fishing from the dock to the customer plate, serving to the customer plate was 160 days, whereas cooking time was just 43 minutes. Now imagine, for 1 hour cooking time, the entire process takes around 150, 160 days. Now, how much it means? You are blocking 159 days of inventory somewhere. So it's a too big a cycle time. Now, immediately this question was addressed, and on war footing this was addressed, and they could reduce the cycle time to cycle time by 45 days. That was step one. When initial results will be very quick, and later on, step by step, they went in a scientific way and followed the supply chain principles, and they could reduce the cycle time. Now it is 90 days cycle time, standard across. So it reduces cycle time, moves goods to the customer. So there is a substantial profit advantage for the extra time you are in the market. If you are sending the product early, then you are having a fantastic supply chain, and your competitor is not there. I am not talking of monopolistic situation. I am talking of a situation where there are many suppliers. So you are reaching early. So effective supply chain, which reduces cycle time, is able to send its product early to the market. And once it goes early to the market, then naturally your presence is felt, and you will become profitable, and it will bring you competitive advantage. Now, how you reduce cycle time, I'll show you. This structure will show you a kind of pentagon. Now this structure will actually mean nothing, but it means a lot. Now there are two kind of activities. One is support activities, one is primary activities. This is a Porter's model of value chain. This he devised some time back, so that you should be in a position to reduce the cycle time. What I said, 150 days to by a reduction, by drastic reduction, how it could be achieved to 90 days ultimately. Now there are primary activities like inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, sales and marketing, and service. These are customer facing functions. They are directly in touch with the customer, and there are few functions which are non-customer facing. These are support functions like procurement, technology, human resource, firm infrastructure. Now these are non-customer facing functions. Now what does it mean? What do we do about it? What do we do about this structure, this pentagon? Now we need to take one by one. Say inbound logistics. What is a total cycle in what are the various activities which are involved in inbound logistics? Now you have to take those activities, analyze each and every activity, where you are spending more time, more money, each and every paperwork, maybe every activity has to be analyzed, detailing has to be done, and then you ultimately you will be in a position to reduce your cycle time. This is Porter's model. This pentagon is Porter's model, which will help everybody to reduce the cycle time. So this importance is that it improves profits and cash flow and creates platform for speed of information. Why it creates platform for speed of information? Because it integrates various functions together and brings IT as also an enabler, which I'll be touching upon after some time. This improves service level for the customer. This slide talks about 100% service level. Now 100% service level. Now there is a difference between 100% service level and 100% service provided. That also will be covered. Now, for it, importance is that it focuses towards sustainability and involves strategic, tactical, and operational decision making. I have already explained that strategic decisions are those decisions which are generally once in lifetime. These are capex decisions, building up a factory, product, and how to have your marketing logistics team, manpower hiring. Now, tactical decisions are medium-term decisions. These are, it could be 3 to 6 months, 6 months, 6 months to 1 year decisions. These are tactical decisions. Now, like aggregate planning, if you produce, you plan for, suppose you are working in a steel industry, then you plan for the entire year. What will be your total growth plan for the next year? Now, operational decisions are day to day and monthly decisions. So these supply chain will give a lot of emphasis to all these three decisions: strategic, tactical, and operational. And SCM is the brain at the center of the business and only function to have clear real-time vision on supply and demand. See, earlier, as I already mentioned, it used to be a linear function. Now it used to be integrated materials. Now and it means it used to be linear mass production. What your capacity is 1000 units in a month, keep on producing 1000 units in a month, send it to the market. If it sells, it's fine. Otherwise, let it go to the warehouse or to the retailer. Next month again you produce 1000 units, and keep on doing this activity again and again till you reach disaster. It actually used to happen. Now situation is different. Now situation is that supply chain has become circular in nature. Now it has a, this probably is the only function which has a real and clear vision on supply and demand. What is happening to supply position and what is happening to demand. Now that is why we call it, it is a very, very sensitive function. Supply chain is a diverse function which can be applied to every kind of university, whether it is manufacturing or services. It can be applied to retail, it can be applied to FMCG, it can be environment organizations, non-profits, government, and military also it can be applied. Military, yes, definitely military. You might have heard about how logistics is doing a wonderful job in military. Supply chain is a multi-enterprise focusing on supplier and customer, which I have already mentioned earlier. Now, this addresses core challenges: strategy, infrastructure, process, organization, and technology. This is the only function which covers or which addresses all these five issues. These challenges, and along with that there are 7 principles. If you address those, you will be able to uh, design a supply chain. Generally in industry, what happens, you are going to have a new product line. Suppose your CEO tells you that you are going to launch a new item called a tire. Now what should we do? He will give you a bill of material. This is approximate bill of material. Now what you should do? Now immediately everybody starts running around trying to gather prices, what are the suppliers, and ultimately within three, he will give you 3 days time. And you will give him within 3 days time that this is going to be your bomb, this is going to be the cause, these are the tentative suppliers. Job very well done, but actually it is not. You have to consider all, I'll cover these points subsequently. You have to follow some process which will be good in long term. In short term, of course your boss may not like it. Now addresses core challenges which I have already mentioned, and it reduces your operating costs, inventory, and minimize losses by creating your own models. Now, say for example, Toyota. Toyota has devised its own model, and we all know what model was devised by Toyota. That was just in time, and there was a need to it because Toyota was facing difficulty. When they were expanding, they were receiving items day in day out, and tire was the item which they were unable to store because it needed a hefty space. A lot of space was required to store tires. Now they were unable to manage. So what should we do? They had a meeting, then they would devise a system that just in time is the right approach. Just have 1 hour inventory. Just in time doesn't mean that you go for zero stock. It means you operate at 1 hour inventory, 2 hours inventory, and keep on receiving those items. Hourly replacement, 2 hourly replacement. This could be applicable for your thermocol in some of the white goods industry, which are voluminous items. So that's the importance of supply chain. This is a function which delivers benefits like shareholders value and gives competitive advantage and solution to many critical world issues like universal access to healthcare, global distribution of food, and environmental sustainability. Like you might have read about Katrina typhoon and what Walmart did during that time. This is a story which is fantastic. It's pretty good. It was a disaster that time, and the entire city was short of water. Now Walmart was good enough, sensible enough. What they did, they started using GPS system. Their vans, their trucks, whatever vehicles were available, they utilized those vehicles and they reached the places where there was no water to drink even before government could reach. So that's a kind of supply chain they had, and that's the beauty of this function. This is called flexibility and speed. It's very vital. They ignored everything. Business came secondary at that stage because they might have missed some of the retail stores operating elsewhere, but of course it was important there to address. So this is what is supply chain, and this is how it is important, which saved so many lives at that time. Now the thing is, why is it so critical now to have specific focus and separate department in a large organization? Now supply chain is a focal point which collaborates with all other departments, customer facing and non customer facing, as I already mentioned in Porter's model. Now all SCM sub functions, planning, procurement, supplier development, inventory control, warehouse, logistics, these are all under one roof. And extremely vital fact, it avoids internal audits objection to major conflicts of interest. See, supply chain and procurement, these are somehow critical about internal audit. Now with this function, my experience has been that you eliminate these objections. Sometimes production finance is merged with procurement. Now what happens, buying department cannot be paying department. Sometimes only procurement is merged with warehousing. So buying department cannot be a receiving department. So these are some of the major internal audit objections which will be avoided if you follow fundamentals of supply chain. And supply chain is, of course, sentient and focused towards customer delight. Sentient means it feels, it anticipates and feels. It feels like what I mentioned was during Katrina disaster. So it has a real-time view of both supply and demand, and it's a demand-intensive approach. Now it can eliminate Tim Woods only if it's a linear and separate department. Many of you might have undergone Lean Six Sigma course. Lean Six Sigma talks about Tim Woods. That is, these are seven industrial ways. T stands for transport, I as inventory, M as movement, W as waste, O as over processing, over specification, defects, and skills. So these are skills. Why skills? Because sometimes you are over skilled labor you are using for unskilled job. Sometimes you are producing more defects. Sometimes you are using over specification. You have to use 6 micron stuff. You are getting 4 micron stuff and paying more. So you have to eliminate Tim Woods, and it's only possible if only it's a linear and separate function. Otherwise, it is not possible. Now, it operates on PDCA cycle. That is, you can see a circle: plan, do, check, and act. And it's a continuous process. It keeps on checking, it keeps on planning. Every month you plan, you do, you check and act. So supply chain continuously improves and re-evaluates the entire activity. That's the beauty of this. Traditional function was not that. You release a purchase order and go and sleep. That's all. Now it is no more that stuff. Now 5 key dimensions of superior supply chain function. Now next, these 2 slides, 5 dimensions and 7 principles, these will be helping you all to decide a strategic fit supply chain which is in line with your business objective. You cannot have a supply chain just what I mentioned, that somebody tells you that you tell me what is the price of this particular component, you go find out sourcing and do this and immediately tell that this is the price. No, it is the wrong approach. Now, first thing is strategy. Now in strategy, what you should cover is your pricing, your cycle time, segment and service levels. These are some of the things. There are many other things which I'll be covering once I go for the course. Now, what price you will be buying and what price you will be selling. This is a part of strategy. Cycle time. Say for example, Flipkart or even Amazon. These companies, they if you go to their website, they will clearly say that you will get the product in 4 days time, 7 days time. In case you want early 2 days time, the price could be different. They will charge something extra. So it's a very transparent process, but that's a strategy. And then comes segment. Which segment you will be addressing? Now, segment is very vital because segment means earlier in a linear supply chain model, all these segments used to be one. I'm a supplier of water bottles. I'll segment all hospitals in one group, all retails in one group, all homes one group. So these are various groups. Now, no more. It is basically what service you need. It's based on service needs. Say for example, there are cabs operating in Delhi or anywhere in this world. Now there are pink cabs. Pink cab is basically segment for the women. It is for their safety. So it's segmentation. The same company has done segmentation for women separately and for common other segment. Prices could be different. I think these are different. I'm not very sure. Now service levels. So these are primary, these will be covered primarily under strategy. Next is infrastructure, whether to have your own factory, that is own factory, own warehouse, or I have to rent it out, or make or buy decision, whether we should go for backward or forward integration. Now infrastructure, these are also a strategic decision, but these are part of correct supply chains. Now process is absolutely under your purview. What are SOPs, whether it is too bureaucratic, standard operating procedures, what are world-class practices? And I'll be sharing those world-class practices definitely, which are operating in supply chain. Whether your process is bureaucratic or it is too flexible, both are wrong. Now, organizations. Now, organizations means cross-functional skills, integration, cohesion, harmony, and org structure. It will deal with that. What kind of organization you will be setting in, because it's a interactive functional interactive function which is enabler and integrates various functions. So organization structure is very important, and then it will have a technology in play, what kind of IT you are using, services you are using. Now, 7 principle of supply chain, what I mentioned, this along with other 5 will help you in designing a strategic fit supply chain. Now, you have to segment what I mentioned, segment customer based on service needs, product features, price, promotions, places. Now, customize the supply chain management network. I have given you the example of that, Amazon and Flipkart. Listen to the signals of market demand and plan accordingly. This is a classic example of Zara. Zara is international Spanish. I'm sure you must have visited there. Spanish fashion garment chain, and they have 2 kinds of sourcing because they could sense now. Fashion is changing very fast. Probably in India it could take 3 months to 4 months, but overseas it is 15 days, 20 days. It changes things. Every customer expects that on display you'll be changing garments every 15 days. Now how to do it? So what they have done, for regular items they source their garments, fashionable stuff which are regular in nature from South Asia, and for more fashionable things their supply chain is from Europe. So they are catering to both the things together. I'll come back to it later. Later means session, during proper session. Now differentiate product closer to the customer. Now you can't have very high inventories all the time. Asian Paints is one of the examples, which is pioneer. What they have done, you all know that they make their base paint ready, and instead of, if you want pink, immediately in 15-20 minutes they will give you pink paint. Same is the case with Dell Computer. They had 2 kind of supply chains, and one was they will configure as per customer requirement and deliver it directly to the customer, but later on they started losing orders. So what they did was they started using retailers and distributors for that. So they also had both kind of supply chains. Now strategically manage the sources of supply. That is, Xerox is a pioneer in that. I'll quickly go through. Develop a supply chain wide technology strategy. And this is technology strategy. Maruti and Xerox, we are very well aware that what kind of ERP they are having. Adopt channel spanning performance measure. That is, every link in the supply chain incorporating both service and financial matter. I have shown the symbol as a heart because this is the heart of supply chain. Channel spanning is a heart because it constantly measure both service levels and financials at every stage. Now, once you are through with this course, now there are few key takeaways. Every session will have key takeaways, and these are vital. Now, on a professional level, on a personal level, both. First, professional level, it will you will measure and increase effectiveness of supply chain. You will be in a position to measure and increase effectiveness of supply chain, measure and reduce inventory levels, release block funds, identify the area of cost reduction and how price can be reduced by applying modern and scientific methods. E-auction. See, e-auction is a it's not exactly a new thing, but it is a most used thing nowadays, but it's not being used correctly. Most of the e-auctions are wrong, I can tell you that, because there is no procedure which is documented. A technical procedure is there, how to create an event, how to go about it, but whether it is right or wrong, one event I have already in Middle East, I have proved that same event, if I did with three suppliers, same set of suppliers, same specifications, with the same duration, but with some different rules, and I got the different results. So e-auction also has to be done correctly. So that's, I'll be having, though it's not a part of the course, but I'll be touching it for 10-15 minutes during the course. Now, how to go about strategic procurement planning with long-term objectives for a win-win situation. Reduce supply chain cycle time. How will you reduce? I have already told you about Porter's model, and then how to reduce. Once you go in detail, you will come to know about it. Now, procure items and services and issue purchase orders, contract AMCs correctly in a systematic way. Adopt best known practices of all sub functions. As I mentioned, these practices will be shared, and some of the practices are really good. This you must know. How to reduce major waste in industry. Already mentioned, that is a green supply chain. Develop supplier base in a structured way. Negotiate and not bargain, and reduce logistics cost. Now, you need to understand one thing, whether you have reduced cost or you have corrected cost. So I'll touch upon that. These two things are absolutely different. You are buying at a price of 10 rupee. Now next time you buy at 8 rupees, whether it is a cost reduction or cost correction, just give a thought. 10-15 minutes you think about it, and then you will come to know what is the difference. And anyway, I'll be touching this also. Evaluate and improve the performance of suppliers. It's vendor rating, and it's not only limited to getting an ISO certification. I'll tell you how to use vendor rating for uh, uh, giving purchase orders also. It may sound a bit anyway, I'll discuss this, how to use it while preparing a purchase order approval. Now, plan the demand and forecast. There are various things which I'll be addressing, and collaborate among finance, PPC, sales, marketing, planning team can see a bigger picture. Now, since it collaborates, you will be in a position to see a bigger picture. It's not a small picture. Everybody will come to know when it is going to be launched, what is the criticality. You are not sitting in a silo. You know now what is happening in the business. You should know the bigger picture. That is what is the beauty of entire supply chain, because of integration, better communication between suppliers, between team members, or of course with suppliers. Now, takeaways for implementation. Now, these were the learnings which will help you to implement what? You can implement SOP, standard operating procedure, and Porter's value chains. You can implement ABC, XYZ, FMS, and VED analysis. FIFO, FEFO, first expiry, first out. This I don't know whether you have used it or not. First expiry, first out. It is used for mainly for food items or medicines, or pharmacies, pharmaceutical companies. But yes, of course, engineering also, even bearing has a shelf life. Even all these items have a shelf life. Last in, first out, where LIFO is used, and warehousing fundamentals, corporate social responsibility, and disposal. Then you will also implement EOQ and min-max and MRP, how to use it, whether to use it or not to use it, when to use it. Very, very key questions which you should be in a position to address that. Now, inventory measurement. Now, why stockouts happen? Importance of move-ins and move-outs, and total circuit inventory, and total cost involved, total cost of ownership. TCO is very important. I'll give you a case study of TCO also during the course. Strategic procurement plan, and just in time and total landed cost concept. Vendor rating, as I said, and contract calendar and AMCs. This you should be implementing that. E-auction, forward and reverse auction, how it should be done. We all know what it is, but how it should be done. That's what should be the right way of doing it. Make or buy decisions. Application of Tim Woods in supply chain management, supplier relationship management, global sourcing, and reverse globalization with Make in India, or Trump patronizing US. So these are all signals of reverse globalization which are taking place. Now, what is right, what is wrong, it's a debatable thing, and we will address this. Now, then another KRA is that another important takeaway is that you should be in a position to frame your KRAs and review and modify. See, so far what is happening is that you don't have a bigger picture. Your boss will tell you that this is your KRA, but that's not the right approach. Your approach is that you know the bigger picture. You should know business objective. You know you are the strategic right kind of fit. You should frame your KRA and let your boss approve this. That's the right approach, because this will give you, it looks very simple that you should be in a position to frame your KRAs, but actually it is a very complicated thing. It has a lot of hidden meaning in that. Now, it means that you know everything about what is happening in this world, what your organization is looking from you. And then, of course, important thing which I should have mentioned here, PDUs, you'll be getting PDUs, 35 PDUs, which will help you in PMP certification, getting extended your PMP certification. Sorry, 1 second. Now we'll come to evolution of supply chain. How supply chain got evolved. I'll quickly go through because I will be running short of time. Initially in 87, rudimentary hand truck was developed, and then basic version of supply chain and education in traffic transport in US University. Barcoding in 52, then American Production and Inventory Control Society was established. This is generally general knowledge. And 1971, reverse logistics was introduced, and supply chain term was coined in 1983. And 3PL was introduced in 85, lean manufacturing 1988, and then 91 ERP was introduced. And probably yes, 1961 MRP, earlier version of MRP was introduced by IBM. Now in 94, window opened for globalization, and total cost of ownership model e-auction 1995. Then we had bullwhip effect. We will take this effect in the course. So green chain was introduced in 2001, and supply chain as a profession was introduced in 2010. And you will be happy that 2011, Tim Cook, he was supply chain leader. He became CEO in 2011. So that is the importance of supply chain. And in 2012, Rethink released Baxter, a new generation robo, which can be taught tasks without any programming for repetitive and distribution tasks. Now with this was the evolution. Now how does our supply chain looks like in next 5-10 years? It's very obvious the supply chain will be very lean, it will be fast and self-orchestrated. Now it will be mobile robots and drones which will be operating. Autonomous fleets will be bringing greater efficiency, and data replaces fuel as biggest influencer. It means, say for example, 3D printing. Now this is also known as additive manufacturing. Now these are some of the digital techniques that reduces your cycle time. Suppose you are a customer and you want to buy some product. Now in China, he will send you a prototype, digital prototype image, so that you can manufacture in India. Now that will drastically reduce your cycle time. That is why I mentioned above, data replaces fuel as the biggest influencer. So definitely your product is not traveling, and your data has traveled over system, and you are replicating it. Recent example, 7 or 8 days back, a fit station store in Europe, they have launched this service. Now I have given the picture of that shoe. It's a fashion shoe, and they have taken the measurement and 3D image. With 3D printing, they were able to reproduce this item here. So that's a new thing, which is next 3-4 years or maybe 5 years, it will be doing this thing, but not much. And it cannot be done for all items. It can be done probably for 5% items. And but presently, even for those 5% items, its penetration is only 3%. So you can very well imagine what's the scope of 3D printing. Now, knowledge work will go global. It means you are sitting in India, but your supply chain team is operating. It is opposite to what is 3D printing. So both the things I am mentioning. Now you're sitting here, your supply chain team is working there and sourcing products and shipping it out. So knowledge work will go global. Now software strategy driven value chains. The value chain is increasingly synchronized to business. Now, if you see the picture, it tells you about 3D printing on supply chains. Red line shows how much time you are consuming, how lengthy is your basically chain from factory to warehouse to ship to ultimately it goes there and then you sell. It's basically push system. You're pushing supplies, whether there is a demand or there is no demand, but ultimately you are sending product to the customer, not to the customer, sending product to the retail or to the warehouse, whether there is a demand or there is no demand. Now, so it's against green supply chain. Means you product may not be used at all. It may so happen. So you are wasting resources. You are resourcing packaging material. Do you know how much packing? Just by the way, I am just mentioning packing material. 1 ton of paper production needs close to 50 tons of water in case it is not circulated. So that is the amount of wasting natural resources. Now SaaS, that is use of the software as a service model in supply chain. I have tried for e-business because I never wanted to invest in capex. So I tried in Middle East that I must get something on pay to service to pay basis. I get for few days this service, say for 3 events, 4 events. Every event I'll pay something instead of investing crores. I wanted to do that, but this particular thing was not available. I tried my level best, but ultimately I had to go for capex. I had to invest that money. No, not me. Basically, my company has to invest that money. So this may be a future thing. SaaS, service model, use per pay basis. And then digitization of everything and internet of everything. Yes, of course, it's a key thing. Now, then wearable devices. Warehouse managers can wear all these gadgets, important gadgets, so that uh, they will know, they will sense what is happening in terms of shortages, in terms of spoilage, in terms of could be sometime thefts. So that is what it is. Now, because visibility is the main problem of a supply chain manager now, things are not, still not visible. And then, yeah, and circular supply chain, as I mentioned, and enhanced supply chain visibility. So these are some of the pictures I have given you. Now, important things I'll cover is truck platooning. This is again a phenomena which will take place in next couple of years. Truck platooning is nothing but grouping of trucks. They are uh, plying together in groups. Now it could be coupled, it could be decoupled, it could be separate, driverless or with driver later on. But thing is that road capacity gets increased. In case 500 trucks are moving together, then imagine if you work out in a daily basis, how many trucks are going passing through that route. It will definitely go up without. And now important thing is there will not be many accident, because once you apply the brake, there will not be any accident, because everybody will be coordinating very well and they will fly at a very slow speed. Fuel consumption will be low, carbon dioxide emission will be low. So uh, this again is a green supply chain. So that's why again I come back to green supply chain and sustainability both. So having given you some idea about what is supply chain and how it looks like, now what should be the target audience for this supply chain? And all supply entrepreneurs, CEOs, business heads, they should be attending this. Supply chain managers, finance managers, demand and forecasting managers, supply chain team, procurement, planning, logistics, warehousing, and sales and marketing managers, operations and production managers. And of course, I'll recommend internal audit also should attend this, though I have not captured this, because they should also know what is happening across, so that they will be also a bit flexible. Internal audit is simply not a police who will tell you, look, you are going wrong here. No, they should be adding value. They are also part of supply chain. They should be adding value to the entire supply chain. Simply saying you are wrong is not sufficient. They have to add value. So I'll suggest they should also be attending this. Now session wise, no, not session wise, sorry. Now comes supply chain sessions. There are 19 sessions in this. What I'll be covering in session 1 is supply chain meaning and definition, supply chain entire process, elements, value chains, Porter's value chain models and its relevance. Now, value chains and Porter's value chain I have slightly touched. Now, in detail with case studies, I will be touching in the course. How and how you can reduce your cycle time. What are value chains? How important these are actually. Then session 2 will have globalization and supply chain management. All the elements of global supply chain management, how they operate, why they are required, importance of key players like China, reverse globalization, and factors affecting global supply chain management. Now, there are few subtopics. There are few subtopics like global supply chain management, obstacles to global supply chain, landed cost in global supply chain management, recent trends in globalization, China's increasing role in global supply. How to get this here? This. 1 second, please. Okay. Sorry. What is global supply chain? What are the factors which affect global supply chain management? Now, there are various factors which impact global supply chain management, like your currency fluctuation. It could be your terrorism. It could be your change in policies of the government. It could be in India, if you say yesterday's incidents, anti-dumping duty was introduced in tires. So China is, they were dumping tires in India. Yesterday on, for 5 years, anti-dumping duty has been imposed. So these are all affecting global supply chains. Now, cost benefits of supply chain, recent developments, we'll be sharing recent developments, China's importance, reverse globalization, and how can terrorism affect GSCM. This, of course, we all know how can terrorism affect supply chain, but recent developments and what are real global supply chains and how it is emerging, we will be touching that. Now, then we will talk about in session 3, how do we manage supply chain? As I already mentioned, there has to be a strategic fit. And strategic fit means objectives of the company you have to consider. You have to see whether supply chain is green and global and how it complements the total supply chain. And now, how do you measure the performance of supply chain? See, you may say your supply chain is excellent, but actually, how do you? It's a very subjective statement. Now, how do you measure it? That's important. So I'll tell you how to measure the supply chain performance. Now, supply chain for products and services. Now, subtopics will be services, supply chain uncertainty and inventory. That is bullwhip effect. You know what is bullwhip effect? And risk pooling. I'll tell you one example, also very interesting example, which will keep you smiling. At least once I was working in a factory. I was working as a purchase manager. Then I was called by my boss, and he said, "Look, this item is not available, and you need to get it in 6 days time." So I said, fine, 6 days time. So I called I immediately, 6 days means I knew its supply lead time is 9 days. So I called my supplier. He told me you have to talk to his supplier then, because lead time is 9 days. It's not in his hand. I spoke with him. He somehow agreed to deliver on 6th day. Now, then I said, it's fine. Let me talk to my down the line. I told him, get this item in 6 days time. Now how they started? He told down the line 5 days. Then he told down the line 4 days. Then he communicated supplier that he gets an item 4 days. Ultimately, he stopped. He said nothing doing. He cannot supply. So this was the bullwhip effect, which created a kind of topsy-turvy in the entire supply chain. But now, green supply chain and quality management. We will also have some key learnings, that is knowledge about supply chain, how to pool risk and manage uncertainty in supply chains. Pool risking, yes, it is important. I gave you example of Dell, that Dell, what they have been doing is bringing their product closer to the customer. It means they will produce item till the last stage. They will not finish it. And once they get an order for some configuration, they will finally assemble, pack it, and give it to the customer. That is risk pooling. And then they can manage uncertainty and not piling up inventories also. Importance of sustainability of supply chains. We have touched upon it. We will do detailing in that. Now, fourth session will be IT and SCM as an enabler and how to measure the performance of supply chain. Now, we will touch upon barcoding, radio RFID, how what RFID is doing wonders, not even in retail. Retail is a thing which we have been seeing, but I have seen in many laundries are doing it. I'll give you some example later, if time permits. Internet, build to order, ERP. ERP, yes, is one of the thing which is hard for supply chain. Key performance indicators and process control. Now, what will be the key learnings? Now, ERP, we will know about how ERP works and what are the key performance indicators and how to use ERP well, because we have a system and but we don't know how to use it sometime, most of the times. If you ask yourself what percentage of ERP you have used, then just note it down. What all, probably it will not be more than 3 to 4% in many cases. In many cases, I'm not talking to everybody, but we must try and use at least 20 to 25% of ERP pertaining to your functional area, because ERP is production also, sales and marketing also, but at least for supply chain part, if you can use 20, you at least should know 20 to 25%. That is good enough indicator. After that, aim should be to know 100%, no doubt. Now, forecasting and demand planning, that is session 5. Strategic role of forecasting, these are overview will be to how to forecast and planning is done. Role of forecasting and demand planning, its importance, and key ingredients, key methods of forecasting and accuracy of forecasting. Now, see why forecasting is required, because it's a major input for planning. Now, if you have a wrong forecast, your planning will go haywire. So you have to have correct forecasting, and what are the various kinds of forecasting, everything we'll be touching upon. Well, now, whether it is one of the method is Delphi method also of forecasting. We will touch that, and because Delphi is a very interesting thing, and he used to be a Greek who used to stay in Oracle Mountain, and many kings used to go to him to ask very many predictions, that when should I have this war, when should I marry, all this, and he used to answer it correctly. No, so what was his method of forecasting? It was not a prediction, it was a method of forecasting. So that's how this Delphi came in play. So apart from that, we'll have moving average method, exponential smoother method, linear trend line. We will take example during sessions, numerical examples, and how to solve those examples, and how do we use it, how forecasting is done. Then after these two sessions, 5 and 6, we should be in a good position to forecast at least the demand, which will be used for your various planning processes. Now, these are the methods which I was mentioning: intuitive methods, opinion polls, Delphi, average of past data, moving average, exponential smoothing, regression models, trend exploration, causal methods, what if, that is basically what if, and time series analysis. All these methods I'll be covering that. Now, session 7 will be need analysis. Why need arises? And then we will have this RAQ SCI model. This is nothing but first things first. First, you have to address regulatory, then requirement. Government needs what? You cannot import alcohol, so you cannot. So like regulatory requirement will have to be met. Assurance, I'm not talking of India. Alcohol you can, I think, import, yes. Assurance of supply requirements, then quality comes next, then service. Suppose these parameters are satisfied stage by stage, that's how it is called RAQ SCI model. Then you have to devise your supply chain. So we will touch that and go in detail. Now, then comes procurement elements. Now, procurement definition and procurement procedures. We will talk about procurement process, supplier selection, RFQ, negotiation, decision trees, POs acceptance, follow-ups and deliveries, process and elements. What is a perfect? Nothing is perfect, but what is more or less correct process of procurement? That we will talk. There are some best practices known. We will discuss that, standard operating procedures, because that will help you to improve your performance and organizational's output in terms of meeting its objective. And then we'll take case study on procurement, PO terms and conditions, negotiation types and processes. Now, PO terms and I have seen many a times whenever some quote comes, 5-page quotes, 5-pager quote. Now, buyer has a tendency to start from the fifth page because fifth page has a price. That's a wrong approach. Now, price should be the last thing to be seen. First, you should see whether specs are correct and delivery times are correct. Then, in case these two things are correct, quantities are correct, everything is correct, then you should go for pricing part. Pricing should be addressed at the last stage. Now, these terms and conditions are vital. At least you can start doing it immediately in case you have not been doing it. First thing, terms and conditions. Now, what is negotiation process? How to negotiate? How to develop suppliers, and what is strategic procurement? Now, in yellow line, I have mentioned e-sourcing. Now it's the inevitability of E of everything. So e-sourcing is probably the key. I mentioned to you that I'll be touching this specially for you because e-sourcing, you may have this module, but how do you use it so that you get the desired result? Session 10 will talk about supplier relationship management, and SRM is extremely vital because you like customer for sales and marketing, it is customer relationship management, CRM. For you, it is SRM, which is equally vital. How do you implement it, and practical aspects of how to implement to gain maximum benefits. After all, it's a long lasting relationship. Then we will have 11 and 12 session on inventory management. Inventory is, as we all know, it is basically idle resource. But why do we need this idle resource? This is to meet some contingencies. Nobody would like to have workforce idle. Then why inventory should be idle? So we will touch upon inventories are idle resources maintained in various forms, how these inventories are managed, how are these relevant, what functions they perform, what would be a computerized inventory system, and it should what should be your computerized inventory system. And because most of us will be having, I am sure, computerized system, and some will be having in-house developed system, some will be having SAP or Oracle or whatever. Now, whether it is meeting your requirement or not, this we will discuss. Now, inventory types, we'll discuss what are the various types of inventories. Now, apart from that, now we will have various inventory control systems. Why inventory control systems? Because it's a selective inventory control analysis, which is ABC, XYZ, FMS, BED. These are 4 kind of analysis. It is basically shifting from trivial many to vital fews. It's very important. You have to shift your focus from trivial many to vital fews. And 80-20 rule will still apply here. It could be 70-30 depending upon your organization and your need. But as I keep on saying, knowing is not sufficient. You may know ABC analysis, you may know XYZ, everything, but how you should implement it. ABC is ABC, it will remain ABC, but getting a report is not sufficient. How you should be using it in a structured way so that your effort is minimized. That is what is the key here. We will be covering definitely that in greater depth. Now, EOQ models, that is session 12, we will have EOQ models, relevance of discounts, reorder level, how to derive this formula, effect of quantity discounts. Why suppliers offer you quantity discounts? That is one of the fundamental questions. It is simply not that to increase his business. That is a misnomer. If you think that suppliers are offering you discount to increase his business, it is no. It is basically something to do with supply chain surplus, and we will touch this supply chain surplus in this class, in this session. And then we will have a calculation of reorder levels with expected service levels and variable demands, variable lead times. Now, chapter 13 will be your distribution management. Now, distribution, as we all know, ultimate objective of any organization is to produce, pack, and distribute. Now, how do you distribute so that few parameters are met? Like product has to reach safely to the customer. It could be internal, it could be external, without damage, with speed, with the same quality. And so how effective is your supply chain network so that you meet your all these parameters? So these parameters will have to be addressed in that. We'll cover distribution system in detail, and whether distribution has to be outsourced or it has to be in-house, because many companies are having in-house distribution system also. I am not touching here right now whether it is right or wrong, but companies have this. Now, recently Flipkart also, I think, has acquired, yes, they have acquired one company which is a courier company. They are distributing, they are taking their goods to and delivering to various other organizations, whether various customers. Sorry. Now, chapter 14 will talk about management of warehouse. Now, warehouse is heart of any company. It is keeping your goods intact. Whatever is the effort of any organization, they are keeping intact. And it's some, I'll say it's a temple for any organization, because it's keeping your goods intact, and your effort is protected there. So now it has to be given utmost importance. Every function is important, but warehouse is something different, which is sometimes I feel is neglected. Now it has to be given right kind of attention. Now, management of warehouse. Now, what are the elements we will address? And if you want to locate a warehouse, how to locate a warehouse, what method you should adopt while selecting a warehouse location. And let me tell you, I have adopted this method in Dubai for finalizing a warehouse. That was, I'm not saying it was 100% correct. It was, I'll say 70 to 75% correct. It will give some optimal solution to me. Now, knowledge about warehouse management, which is very important, and how to locate and how to manage that. We will cover everything. Now, various ways of session 15. Now, various ways of balancing demands with supplies and delivering material at optimum cost. Now, everything is a cost. Every element of a supply chain is a cost. So we need to understand how do we get efficiency so that your transportation becomes efficient and economical with proper loading, so that your demand is also met. Again, it's a question of green supply chain. Everything is linked with green. If you see, I give a lot of importance to green. Now chapter 16. Now chapter 16 will talk about continue with transshipment and transportation analysis tools. Now there are various transportation methods if you are shifting goods from place A to place B. Now what will be your minimum cost, what will be your method, right method? There are various methods: minimum cost method, northwest methods, Vogel's method, stepping stone methods. And these are one of the, I'll take examples of one by one of all numerically, and I'll try and solve those examples in front of you so that you will understand how this is done. Some of the problems will be heuristic in nature, some will be absolutely optimal solution, will give you optimal solution. Now optimal means it will be a minimum cost. Heuristic means immediately you can start. Okay, fine, I don't have time, let me start with this. So that is heuristic. Now then comes sales and operation planning, that is chapter 17. Now we will have various subtopics in that, like sales and operations planning process, strategies for adjusting capacities, level production, chase demand, peak demand, overtime, all these points we will address. And methods of adjusting production capacities with sales demand, because sales demand will keep on varying every month, every week, every day also. How to adjust those. Now chapter 18 will be aggregate sales and operations planning. Now why do you call it aggregate? Aggregate is nothing but you are suppose you are manufacturing, you're working in a steel plant, so you are manufacturing steel. So your boss or your CEO may not be interested in knowing how much what will be your growth in next 10 years. He will be interested in knowing growth could be growth of in totality. So aggregate planning will help you in that way. It will tell you, okay, fine, I'm producing steel channels, steel bars, steel rods. So instead of that, let me put only in steel as a raw material, no billets, nothing. And total metric ton, what will be 1 year, one year, what will be my growth target? So that is how it will be done. So we will be adjusting production capacities based on sales demand with aggregate planning. We'll touch this. And finally, 19 chapter will be covering forecasting and master production schedule, and that is MRP process. With MRP process and MRP we'll touch ERP, and how important ERP it is in our real life situation. And we all know the difference between MRP and MRP1, and then comes ERP. So we'll have some detailed discussion and question answer on that. And thank you very much for having patience in listening to me. And any questions you can